Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. You are joining us with VRM Intel live online. If this is the first session you've gotten into, we have been running these VRM Intel live conferences regionally, but we had already decided pre-COVID that we were going to actually take some of these live. So we were moving in that direction before this happened. So we went ahead and scheduled this, not really knowing where we were going to be on August 16th. And interestingly, we still don't know where we're going to be on August 16th, as far as how this COVID is progressing and how the reopening question is being determined. I don't know that we know any more right now than we knew last week. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring together some companies, leaders who are managing multi-destination property management companies to kind of discuss the challenges they're facing and what they're seeing on kind of a more macro level from a property management hat, but also the challenges they're facing from trying to manage multiple destinations throughout this crisis. So I want to introduce you to Tobias or Tobias One. So apparently now I know if you're in Germany, it's Tobias, which is probably what he prefers. But over here, it's Tobias because we all watched the Divergent movie. So anyway, he's with Oyo now. Tobias has been around for a while, though. You were at HomeAway for a little bit, too, at the same time I was, but we didn't know each other there. And then with At Leisure, which was purchased by Oyo, and now he is the head of vacation homes in Oyo. And we have got Bob Milne, who's the COO of Vacasa. And I think most of you have met Bob. Bob is also on the VRMA board and has been pulling double duty, trying to lead from that perspective too. And then we have John Banzak from Turnkey Vacation Rentals. Little known fact, Turnkey, well, first of all, John was also at HomeAway. So we have quite an alumni here, but John and I used to work for John.
I was technically your boss like twice.
You were my boss for like, yeah, true. So I'm a little intimidated with these three people on this call. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna try to hold it together. So thank you guys for being here. First of all, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I think it's really helpful for the industry. First, Tobias, what is going? I mean, tell me about Europe right now. Are you guys? You've read all the headlines about the U.S. I know you have, because we've talked about it. First of all, what is going on in Europe now? Are you starting to see signs of life or reopening or anything there? And second part of that question is, what do you think about what's going on in the U.S.?
Actually, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's great to talk to you here today. It's a welcomed difference to my normal home office days here. We obviously in a very, I think in practically we are in a similar situation than in the US. The difference is that it is much more diverse, because every country has its own version of COVID-19 outbreak and has its very own answer and response on it, right? Which makes it more difficult for us as a pan-European company to find an overall response to it. We do see some countries showing some early signs of recovery. I can speak to this in more detail if you want. But in general, the situation is dire. I mean, when you look specifically into typical vacation destinations like Spain, Italy, France, so the southern European countries, they are still in a severe lockdown and probably will not open up for any type of travel activities for quite some time, right? The further north you get, you get the feeling the better it becomes. There's an exception in Sweden. But for example, we are really lucky that we have our Danish business. We have a pretty strong Danish business. Denmark is one of those few exceptions that do allow in-country travel still, and have always during the crisis allowed in-country travel. And Danes are using that. And Danes are leaving the big cities like Copenhagen to actually spend time in the countryside. So We have some glimmer of hopes in some parts of Europe, but we also have some dire situations still.
When you look at the U.S. as far as how we are doing, well, we've seen a lot of furloughing of employees in our industry. And Bob, actually, I'll go ahead and ask you about this really quickly. We've heard a lot of Vacasa did a round of layoffs originally, and then a pretty decent furlough round past that. Are most of your employees at home right now? Or, well, I guess all your employees are at home right now, but are most of them furloughed at this point?
I mean, yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, first of all, also thanks, Amy, for having me. And certainly it's, you got a great all-star lineup with Simon and Cliff and Tim and Leslie and Ben, and you got everybody. So it's good to see you got all the all-stars here. So it's good.
You don't want to know what I had to do to get everybody.
You got Jim Olin, you got my former colleagues from Wyndham, so it's great. I love it. So yeah, look, I mean, the hardest thing, of course, with all of us, I mean, we're full service property management, so we've got housekeepers, maintenance, techs, the whole gambit, LOMs, property caretakers. So it's been challenging.
Did Bob freeze?
I think Bob froze.
They must have they must have furloughed the IT guys.
Oh no. Let's see, Bob, you're frozen. I think you can probably hear us, but we probably can't hear you. So I'm going to switch back over. JB, have you had to lay off or furlough your employees?
So we have not yet. Right, we're I think a very different footprint of a business than someone like Vacasa. And we've tried to approach this from the perspective of how do we keep everybody employed. Now we've done some pay cuts and we've done some hour reductions, but we still have everyone fully employed on healthcare. With anywhere from a 50% pay cut for everyone who's a VP on up to a 20% pay cut for people out in the field. And depending on when the recovery comes, we should be fine with that. Now, obviously, if there's no bookings for 6 months, that may have to change. But our current plan is to keep everyone, and I think that's working pretty well for us. Bottom line is we got homes to take care of, right? So if I let go of everyone in the field, who's going to go check on an owner's home? And we're still doing that regularly.
Tobias, in Europe, you've got a very different assistance plan than we do. Tell me about that as far as managing that across countries.
So, I mean, it's in general, I mean, you could say on average, it's a lot better as I understand the US system is. The principle is in every country to keep basically people employed, as JB just said, right? I mean, they want basically people to continue be on the payroll, and companies want that too, right? The difficulty for us as a pan-European employer is obviously every country has its own regulations. Literally, every country has its own regulations, and I had to become an expert in government aid over the last 4 weeks. And it's not always easy to kind of keep up with all these rules. But in principle, I must say almost all countries are trying to do that with various aid programs. That means they're for example, if you reduce work time for 70, or let's say 30%, then the company still pays obviously the 70%, they still pay social security, and then the government comes in and supports the missing 30%, right? In some countries, you literally have to send people home. Denmark is an example. If you reduce basically the work time, if you want government aid, you literally have to send these people home and they're not allowed to work. Netherlands, for example, which is, we are in a very lucky position here as a Dutch company with a large part of the workforce in the Netherlands. The Netherlands have probably the best program of all. They say, they compare your revenues, let's say March 2020 revenues, compare them with 2019, And then if you had, let's say, an 80% revenue reduction year over year, they would pay 90% of those 80%. That's, and the workforce can still work 100%. That's probably of all programs the best program I've seen, and that's helping, right? Because obviously we are seeing revenue reductions like that, and then we can come and ask the government to help us with our salaries here. In general, I mean, we're trying to keep obviously everybody not only employed but also working. We need them working. We have still lots of customer requests, homeowner requests, guest requests, obviously cancellations, rebookings. I have a lot of respect for our customer service teams, who all work from home, by the way, since 4 weeks, and handle this extreme workload. And then we also try to kind of come up with ideas how to basically get bookings back and see how we can actually spur some of the demand, right? So in general, I think the European programs are working. I get the feeling that there's still a solid amount of optimism amongst everybody in Europe, despite this hard-hit crisis. But as JV said, I mean, we are in week 4 or 5 now. If this is month 4 or 5, I think this will look very different.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can't see you,
Yeah.
but I can hear you.
Thank you for
Sorry.
rejoining.
Yeah.
No, trust me, I understand. So going back to you, I want you to finish where we think you left off.
Where did you lose me?
So we were talking about the
furloughs.
So now Amy froze.
Now Amy froze, but yeah, you were sort of mid-discussion on the furloughs, Bob.
furlough.
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, what I was saying is that with the furloughs, we're trying to keep in touch with all the team, because as I say, we are full service, and we know this is temporary. All of us do. We just don't have the crystal ball as to when we're going to come out of it. But certainly, we're seeing reservations, for May, for June, for July, and as we start to ramp and come out of this, we want to make sure that we can bring people off of furlough quickly, which is why we're keeping in touch with them, and that we're making sure that they have all their devices. So yeah, it's been hard, but I think we're doing the best we can, and the teams really understand. I mean, they understand there's no business right now for us in April, and so it's making the best of the situation. We're being innovative. The teams are being creative, and I think that's the biggest thing, is making everyone feel like they're still part of the Vacasa team.
One of the things I just have a heart. I mean, can you hear me first of all?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
That I don't managing the open and close dates and all the regulations and restrictions in one destination is hard enough. I mean, this is a question for each of you, actually. How are you managing this across multiple destinations? And you guys have a lot. I mean, how are you keeping up with what's going on in Gulf Shores versus Orange Beach versus Perdido Key versus Pensacola, like on down the line? I mean, what kind of challenge is that for you operationally?
Yeah, it's certainly it's more complex. That said, we've got teams still fully employed in every market, and in a lot of cases they don't have a ton of other work to do. So we've repurposed a lot of our salespeople to track things like the minutia around closures, and it's not even just in one area, right? It could be a zip code, or it could be where the county stops, right? It's pretty complex. But we have them doing things like that. We have them doing outreach to local governments and hospitals for first responders to stay. We have plenty of cities where we've had to zero out all the inventory, but it's actually okay if a first responder stays. So we just have kind of redirected their work. So I wouldn't say it's been easy to track, but if you've got 100 people around the country who are paying attention to their locations, it's been reasonably easy to track, right? I mean, there'll be some times where we'll be a day late in hearing about a market closure, but it's usually the next day, not a week later.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with John. I mean, I think with our teams, just like John has, we've got teams in all the markets that are still working, and fortunately our central team, we've got a good group of we basically repurposed our compliance team to really kind of be in charge of watching where all the closures were. And I think now with there's 44 states that I think have some type of in-home shelter, and a number, it's probably 70 more counties and cities and municipalities. And I think the hardest thing for us a little bit was early on was sort of what John just alluded to, was where some markets are open and you're in the same geography. So your teams are kind of going between markets that were closed and open. And that was a little bit challenging early days, but keeping on top of it, of course, and communicating. That's the other thing. I mean, with all the different, we operate in so many time zones, just making sure that you're communicating to your owners effectively has been a big thing. Our new CEO, Matt Roberts, really good guy. He and I did a webinar for all of our owners, and that went really well. We had over 2,000 owners jump on, and it was good because we were able to just kind of, talk a little bit about the closures, and that we still had the local teams in place. But those kind of things, I think, are what really, when you see these kind of situations, you really start to see that bring out the best in everybody. So we're really seeing a lot of good opportunity for us to bond with our owners and with our teams. So.
Tobias, you've got some interesting, you've got Italy, Spain, France.
Yeah, I wish I could say it is as easy. I mean, you're not saying it's easy to manage, but you're saying for us here in Europe, obviously, we have all these different country regulations. We have different governments with various different ways of looking at it. So it is indeed one of our biggest tasks every day to kind of make sure that we are coping with changes throughout all our European destinations. And sometimes even, let's take the Netherlands, for example, they as I said, they have a fairly relaxed national in-country travel policy, but then certain regions within the Netherlands then are shutting down or not allowing travel. So that makes it even more complicated. So what we've done is we've literally having an 8 o'clock morning call every day where we are going through with a team of people. We are going through all the changes, and we're doing project management as good as we can to make sure that we capture all of those changes that may have happened over the course of the last day. And then we're informing our customer service teams, then, who obviously have to have all this information at hand, because there may be a German traveler calling in for Spain, and then the next call they get is a Belgian traveler calling in for Croatia. So that is not easy, but it became a daily rigor, basically, to set up a process and provide this information within the organization, and it works.
Bob, advantages and disadvantages of being big. You've done both. You've been with a smaller company, you've been with bigger companies. In a situation like this, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being in multi-destinations?
I think, we talked a little bit about kind of some of the disadvantages. It's just kind of, tricky trying to balance all the different ordinances in the different locations. And, to Tobias's point, I mean, internationally, it's been a challenge. I mean, the European countries have taken a pretty aggressive stand, and then the South American countries and LATAM have been a little bit different. So that's been challenging for sure. I think some of the advantages that I've seen for us is that, our supply chain had a little bit of disruption, but because we've got, such good national, international suppliers, that we've been able to get good supplies of the cleaning products, and been able to, kind of leverage that to our advantage. And so I think those are some of the things. I mean, the other thing is just, keeping our relationships with our travel partners has been really good, because Vacasa's got such a broad range of inventory. We've been able to keep good relationships with all of our travel partners and tour operators and third parties. So that's been really helpful. mean, the hard thing is we're local. We're local. I mean, that's the thing, is that we really are local. So, you know, for me right now, for example, I'm in Steamboat Springs, and you know, there's you know, you see some of the teams had to furlough, and so that's probably the same challenges that the local teams are going through. But the nice thing is that, you know, being local, you also have people here that are working and can reach out to the owners and do some things. We've had a lot of owners that have requested kind of maintenance inspections and that sort of thing. So we're doing what we can to accommodate the owners on a local basis.
Jenny, I want to switch over and talk about cancellation policies for a second. So you and I have also talked, you know, I mean, I've been baffled by some of the changes in cancellation policies in our industry as a result. And you hear all the time that we just need to do the right thing. But I was talking to a property manager yesterday. It's like, do the right thing by whom, you know? So tell me about your thought process in working through your cancellation policies through this crisis.
Yeah, you know, it's a hard one, right? Because most of the press out there thinks doing the right thing only involves doing the right thing for guests. That's just the default. And everyone who's probably watching this call knows that as a property management firm, we've got more constituents than just the guests, and we got to do the right thing for both owners and guests. You know, we're hired by owners to represent their homes. So, you know, when we started to see problems arising and refund requests coming in, we knew that if we went the route of an Airbnb where we just unilaterally told our homeowners that, you know, we're not going to respect your policies at all, we're just giving refunds to everybody, too bad, that'd be a big mistake, right? Our owners are really important to us. So we decided to give guests a better deal than they signed up for. They're getting a credit. And I would say about 5% of our guests are very unhappy with that. And that's unfortunate, but it's just a fact of life, and we're gonna have to live with that. You know, if you go look at Southwest Airlines Better Business Bureau page, they have a 1-star rating, Southwest Airlines, and they run a mid-60s NPS score, right? And they're getting lit up on refunds. If Herb Kelleher was alive today, I think he'd have some choice comments around people lighting them up for refunds. It's a fair policy for employees, owners, and guests, and it's just one we're sticking with. And, you know, we've had to get some pretty thick skin, but owners have really appreciated it, and quite frankly, most guests have too. For every guest that gets to me directly, I have another guest that reaches out to me and says, wow, this is great. I thought I wouldn't get my money back. In fact, we've had guests who just didn't even request a refund, right? They just assumed they wouldn't get their money back. And when they got the email saying, hey, you can credit this, they were pretty ecstatic. So it's just a fact of life. And, you know, every travel provider is going through this right now. And, you know, ultimately, we're going to stick to our policy.
Tobias, in Europe, cancellation policies are even stricter than they are here, are they not?
Yeah, but it's again very much depends on the country you're looking at, right? I mean, there is countries who have interestingly reacted very fast and quickly institutionalized vouchers, right? I mean, let's face it. The issue we are discussing is cash flow,
Right.
and I think many of the governments have understood here that no one is helped if there's a huge cash drain on the hospitality industry, and we have airlines and hotels and ultimately vacation rental companies going out of business because of basically an institutional right of a cash refund, right? Some countries have reacted quickly and as I think in our favor by actually allowing vouchers. The Netherlands is again a very good example of a country that has done that and also securing these vouchers, which I find also very important from a consumer point of view, right? I mean, I do agree it is tough for a consumer to just get a voucher and not knowing if this company is still in business in 12 or 18 months when I may want to redeem it. But if you do it like many of the European countries do it, where they say we allow companies to issue a voucher and then we have a guarantee system behind it, so in case that these company would still go out of business, will actually pay out the voucher for you. So for us, it is luckily from a governmental point of view a little bit easier to hand out these vouchers. But I agree, obviously, still you have guests who come in and say, I want my money back, or there may be guests who need their money back, right, in a situation like that. And then we will listen to it, and then we will react to it, and on a case-by-case basis. But in general, we do it like probably everybody else. We are issuing vouchers, we are doing rebookings. We are also trying to find ways to actually help our homeowners to preserve these bookings, because one of the things that I heard early on in discussing this topic with the homeowners, they said, okay, I get you guys issuing vouchers, but that means the traveler actually can use this voucher on any home of Belvilla or Danzig, right? Which is true. But then they asked me, how can you help me to make sure that I get the booking? So one of the things, what we've done is, and it was a trial and we have to work on it, but as we said, we sent basically an email to all our guests where we had to cancel the booking, and said, if we're suggesting you already booking that same house in a period in a year from now, not only because we want you to redeem the voucher, but also to make sure, I mean, travel will come back. And that means at one point we will have a situation where we have a very scarce supply, right? So we are trying to tell those guests, I mean, it may be already a good idea to think how to redeem it, and why not actually use it on the exact same house in the exact same period 1 year later. And with this, we were also getting a lot of positive feedback from the homeowners, because they say you're not only keeping basically the guest in the universe, but you're also helping me to actually make sure my house gets booked next year.
That's super interesting. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry, JB, go ahead.
So, and we actually took it a step farther, and we're only allowing the vouchers to work on the home that you booked. So when we met with homeowners and we shared a couple options with them, you know, the concept that they could book on any turnkey home raised a lot of questions, right? The sentiments were, well, great, that's fine, turnkey, you're well off then, but I don't know that I'm ever going to get bookings. And when we looked at the bookings, you know, what we're really talking about here is a period of about 30 days worth of bookings, right? At Turnkey, we don't collect the full payment until 30 days prior. So basically everything starting roughly April 15 or so wasn't even paid up anyway, right? And if you looked at where those bookings were, they were in typical spring break destinations. So you had someone who planned a beach or a ski trip, is the overwhelming majority of our bookings. Now you had some for South by Southwest in Austin. All of those are prime candidates for trips to hit the reset button and take the same trip next year, right? If the home and the dates were great for you this year, hey, come back next year. And we went so far as to say, we'll even guarantee the pricing on the home for next year. And a lot of people book these on last minute discounts, so they got great deals on them. You know, we had people booking on March 7th for a spring break trip on March 14th, right? So we told owners, look, you're going to get the business back again next year. You're going to get the revenue. It's a great thing to look forward to. You know, it's on the books. We're not just going to let them go somewhere else. And owners really appreciated that. And again, most guests were fine with that. They said, you know what? I go to Park City every year. Why not go next year? And great, I get the same price. I already booked this home. I like the deal. Why not do it again? So we like that policy a lot, and it seems to have gone over really well with owners.
Bob, for you guys, how have you been handling cancellation policies now? I mean, have you changed your policy?
I mean, very similar to what John was just talking about. I mean, you know, we've become a little bit more flexible and certainly been looking at the future stay credits, which I think, you know, John just spoke, you know, pretty accurately about in terms of the perception and how guests handle it. Same thing. I mean, we're seeing that people that had a reservation for April or May are saying, well, maybe we'll just come in September or October. So again, seeing a lot of flexibility, but yeah, there's a lot of guests that are obviously taking a hard line in terms of definitely wanting a refund. But we're seeing a lot of guests that are very appreciative, as John is seeing, Tobias mentioned, is with respect to being able to use the future stay credit. So I think the industry's reacted well. I think some of the perception out there is probably worse than it really is in terms of how we've all been operating. I mean, I know on the VRMA board we were talking about it, and even the small VRMs, they're doing the same thing. They're being flexible. They're offering future stay credits. So I think everyone's trying to work through this, you know.
So looking into 2020, I was going to stick on that. I could talk a whole session with you guys about the cancellation policies. My concern, looking at it from the outside in, is that some of the more flexible cancellation policies that we're seeing with local providers will dramatically change the way that cancellation policies are handled in our industry in a way that our booking window doesn't really make sense for. So, but I'm going to switch gears. Modeling for 2020. Right now, let's start with you, Bob. How are you looking at 2020? Like, are you thinking are you guys trying to get, cash to make it through the entire year? Do you think travel rebounds in the summer? Is the summer salvageable? How are you modeling for the rest of the year?
I mean, I think the way that we're looking at it is just kind of balancing a little bit of what you've got for data right now in terms of, the booking patterns. I mean, our April, we basically saw, 95% of our reservations, vanish off the books compared to where we would have been in a normal April. And May's not trending a whole lot better. We are starting to see some rebound for June and July. And as you start to look at, we look at two things. We look at when are they booking, and so you see right now, typically this time of the year, we probably see people making reservations 30 to 40 days out. Now we're in the 140, 160 days out. So you're starting to see people look at, late July, August, September. Our booking patterns right now, if you look at through July and August, still pacing down double digits compared to last year. But if you start to look into the September, October months, especially when you're starting to get into some of those ski markets, we're pacing pretty much even with where we would be in a typical year. So I think it's a little early to tell how quickly and where some of the rebound will come. I think, one of the things that we're forecasting is that, pricing will be maybe not so much the initial reason why you get people to travel. I think it's going to be safety, cleanliness, those kind of things are what travelers are going to be looking for. And so we're trying to, forecast and plan of how we're going to be able to get ahead of that a little bit. I'm actually, again, honestly, I'm encouraged that you start to see people booking, 180, 160 days out. I mean, the last 3 days in a row, we've had, each day we've had better reservations than the day before. So we're starting to feel like, again, small signs of encouragement for sure. But I don't think there's any way, Amy, I don't think there's any way that 2020 rebounds enough to be a year that it's not down significantly for the industry, at least what we're seeing.
JP, do you agree with that? Is that how you guys are looking at it too?
Yeah, look, I mean, we think demand is going to start coming back in mid-June, and July has the potential to be a decent month. And then fall is weak for all of us, as everybody knows, and we think by the end of the year we'll start to see a regular demand pattern come back. I think what worries me right now isn't so much the demand side coming back. I'm a little worried on the supply side. You've got, things like the Florida closures of all vacation rentals, South Lake Tahoe, Port Aransas, to the degree that the locations, the destinations don't care about getting tourist revenue, then there's no upside for them to open up inventory, right? So the question is, when will South Lake Tahoe decide that they want to take guests again? If it's not until September, then the summer's going to be terrible. Now, do I think they'll do that? No, but quite frankly, some of the locals there are crazy, and they might try to do that. So right now, I think we're fighting this on a bunch of fronts. The concept that you will not allow a family to shelter in place in a destination, in a location that's probably ideal for sheltering in place, to me is a bit of a head scratcher. And the question is, when does that end, right? So we're predicting it ends at the end of May, but if that pushes, then summer's going to be terrible for everybody, not just multi-destination.
To be the same question to you, but also added into that component, are you seeing the travel shaming that we're seeing here, the locals
Yeah,
not wanting tourists in the area?
yeah, we do. We do see that. I obviously it's the exact same thing, probably all over the world. It is locals trying to protect themselves from basically people bringing the virus potentially into their places. So we do see the same thing. And obviously we, as I told you, in almost all of the countries, we have a complete travel ban, right? So those people would always then feel encouraged to actually shame on those because they have potentially the right to do so, right? Because travel isn't literally allowed. As I said before, I do see glimmers of hope in our business. Like Bob, we are seeing, interestingly, over the period of the last week, an increase in bookings, steadily increase in bookings. We have some countries like Denmark and the Netherlands where in-country travel is allowed, and that you can actually see people have a lot more confidence in those countries. But then you do see bookings in other countries as well for the period of July, August, and then specifically September, October. What I'm predicting is that in Europe we will continue to have a period of in-country travel only. If you take some of the recent announcements, the Austrian chancellor actually said the other day that he asked his Austrian people to be aware of the fact that they can only do vacations within Austria because they will keep borders closed. The French President Macron said something similar 2 days ago, where he said this summer will be very different for all French people because they mostly be asked to stay in the country. So what I'm hearing left and right, without being officially basically having the governments having made that decision, is I think most, if not almost all countries will keep borders closed here in Europe. But what we will see is that then the in-country travel will actually start to happen. And that is where I'm bullish, because that was always where we've been strong in the vacation rental industry, right? I mean, this is the typical vacation rental guest in Europe packs their car and drives to their destination. And so the Germans will just go to the German coast, and the Dutch will go to the Dutch coast. But we will see business coming back, but it will be far from what it was in 2019.
Yeah, I think Simon mentioned something about in Europe that I had not heard, but I think I'm going to ask you is he said borders are back. You know, this whole idea borders are back. The whole idea of that now it's a very, like you said, French travel in France and Italians travel in Italy, and I think we thought from Skift, Ali had that prediction for the U.S. too, that we'll see people in Oregon go to the Oregon coast, people in Alabama go to the Alabama coast, Texas, the same thing. Bob, do you think that you'll see that radically local travel?
Yeah, I mean, I think we anticipate that we'll see the drive markets kind of, and that be kind of what rebounds maybe first. But I would echo one thing that John said, which I think makes sense, is that the demand, I think, is going to be there if some of these states and local municipalities don't lift their ordinances and don't kind of work with what they see going on. That, of course, will impact things, but we definitely anticipate that as things, loosen up, people will drive to the Oregon coast again. People will drive to Hilton Head. People will drive to Myrtle Beach, and people will drive to Destin and the Gulf Shores. I mean, So if you look at where our markets are, where the reservations are coming in, yeah, Florida's still very popular destination, and we're still seeing reservations come in for Florida, for Hilton Head, for Myrtle Beach, for Gulf Shores, for Colorado. So there's the demand. It's just whether or not we'll be able to have the restrictions be lifted. I think
I think, let me just say one thing. I mean, I find these are the two things I really worry about. If you combine this travel shaming we talked about with this new nationalism we see, you can potentially think of a world, at least short term, where basically people will not go over borders. And if you are actually from a foreign country or from a foreign state, you'll be looked at, you'll be potentially be shamed. This worries me a lot, because this would mean we have lost 20, 30, 40 years of positive development in travel within a couple of weeks and months.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I think that we had this nationalism sentiment going into this situation. This has just really heightened that and given people it's excusing bad behavior. You know what I mean? Like it's encouraging some behavior that we had considered taboo and politically incorrect for a long time, and now it's very out in the open. And it doesn't seem to really divide along party lines either, which is super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a matter of when does the local economy and the local tax rolls start to suffer enough, right? Take South Lake Tahoe as an example. The local economy is based on tourism, and the local tax rolls are based on property taxes for the most part. And they're already looking at massive cuts. At some point there's going to be no money left in the coffers, and you got to open back up. And then there's also just the legality, right? I mean, we've already seen several lawsuits filed saying, look, I've got property rights. You can't tell me I can't come to my second home. If this continues, that's going to escalate like you've never seen, right? There are a lot of property rights people in the U.S. They're not going to stand for 6 months of no access to your own location.
Looking at operations, all of you are ops guys anyway. So are there fundamental changes to how you operate as a company that you think are going to be permanent?
Yeah, we I think on the cleaning side, it's been mentioned before. If you look at how we do housekeeping, it's a very technology-based approach, and we've already rolled out some new features where if you're a housekeeper now, when you log into the in-home app every time you do a housekeeping job, you got to certify that you brought COVID-related products. You even have to take a photo of the products you brought, and we have those manually reviewed now each time, so we can actually monitor and score a housekeeper on that. We've got new procedures we've already rolled out, wiping doorknobs, wiping countertops, and so on. We probably will never change that, right? It's a simple change for us to make. We'll see some improvement, and housekeepers have been quickly trained. Why roll that back? I think that's a change now where I think we're going to want to virus-free home forever, not just over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we're seeing, Amy, for sure, is that with the training and just like I'm sure with Tobias, all of us in the industry have gone to the technology with our housekeepers and being able to have them have their housekeeping app and all the things that they need to do for each specific home. I mean, I will give a plug for VRMA too. I mean, Dirk and the team at VRMA with VHRP have put together some really good trainings and some good videos for our members to take advantage of, and my team's been all looking at those. So I think we're going to see that be more of a thing. Cleanliness and security and safety have always been an issue, but it's going to be even more of an issue when people are searching for vacation homes for their families. So I think it's something that that's a good thing that's come out of this, in my view.
To both of you, do you think you will switch to professionally laundered linens completely?
It just depends on the market, right? I mean, some markets it's impossible, and some markets it is possible.
Exactly. I agree with John. I mean,
some locations.
Yeah, in markets where you can, in markets where we have them, it's great. In some locations, it's really rural. You have to kind of work with that. So.
If there are property managers who have laundry facilities that provide those in those markets you're talking about, would you be willing to work with them to provide some professionally laundered linens in these properties?
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
look,
in fact, we do in some markets. I mean, in some markets, we work with other property, with other property management companies and do their laundry and vice versa. So yeah.
I'm not sure professionally laundered though gets you any farther, right? I mean, if you think about the logistics and supply chain that go with getting that linen off-site to a facility, washed, dried, folded, bundled, packaged, shipped back, I'm not sure that's any better than having a good housekeeper clean at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is anecdotal. I mean, I would get a lot of information about this, but I mean, like in some of these owners, they have, uncomfortable like sheets, like in the sense that they're aged, and they're aged, and where I could have stomach that or handle that before COVID-19, these are things that as a guest, I'm not sure I would want, going forward.
I
I
mean,
just didn't
Amy,
know on
yeah,
that.
one of the things that we've done, I'm sure others have as well. I mean, we've got a pretty aggressive linen program for our owners. So we take control of how and when the linen gets replaced, and so we're annually we're doing linen replacements for our owners, and they really appreciate that. We have the standards so that we have different linen packages that you can get. But I hear you. I mean, of course, you want to make sure that you've got your supplies and your products are up to speed. But I think a lot of the owners appreciate the fact that we do that for them.
Tobias, same thing for you operationally. What's changed for you there? I know you moved a lot of your call center home right before this happened anyway, correct? You were moving to more work from home opportunities.
So we did it because we saw it coming. So it's not that we wanted to kind of move them off the office, but we obviously saw it coming. We tested it. So we've now everybody at home, and that's working, which is, I mean, easy to say when it's working, but you better wanted to be prepared. So that's good. And then other than that, obviously we do have, like JB and Bob, we have local offices and local operations that are still running and that need to be manned. And obviously here we have to find ways to, change the processes to protect our own employees, but also make sure that guests have the experience that they would basically expect in these times, right? And I said that the other day, I'm a firm believer, and I'm also saying this to all the property managers on this call. I'm the firm believer that basically professionally managed vacation homes will be the big winner of this crisis, if you may say so, right? Because different to peer-to-peer platforms, we are able to set a standard, and we are able to communicate that standard, and we are able to stand in for that standard. And that is exactly what guests will look for the foreseeable time. And that's not only the matter of the next couple of months. I mean, no one knows, but I'm expecting this virus to stay for a good while, and it will impact the way we travel and the way we behave. And so the product itself, vacation rentals, is already much more preferred than hotels or anything else. But then if you're professionally managing your homes, and if you're providing a standard, then you will be actually standing out also versus the peer-to-peer colleagues. I'm very convinced of that.
Bob, in your furlough, and this is just a question I have, I'm just curious more than anything, like when you're getting everyone back to work, how do you decide how many to bring back, how quickly to bring back? I know you guys have got a plan kicking right now. I'm trying to understand what that reopening process would even look like.
I mean, a good question, Amy. Yeah, we've got some models that we've built out that basically can help us and help our teams in the field kind of make some of the decisions. I mean, again, it goes back to the furlough. I mean, I like the furlough concept because the people that we're still in touch with, they're still on our insurance. They know the homes, they know the markets. So we're able to kind of say, okay, match that up with the volume of reservations. So as we look out, we see the number of reservations in any given market, we're able to say, okay, with this much occupancy and this much volume, we're going to need this many housekeepers in that market. We're going to need this many maintenance techs to come back in that market based on the reservations that are coming in. So the nice thing about our industry is that we do have advance notice in terms of when people are booking, so we can start to plan for that. I think like all of us, I mean, my biggest fear when we were doing the furloughs, besides just, it's just hard. I mean, these are people you work with that are hard workers doing the heavy lifting, but is to just make sure that that we keep in touch with them, so that when they do come back, they're ready and that they're trained. And that's the other thing. We talk about the training. I mean, the housekeeping that we've all gone through in terms of the additional training, the additional products, the safety, all that's so important. And that's why I want to make sure that when we bring the people back, that they're the ones that are on furlough that know the home. So it's a little bit of science and a little bit of art, but obviously, having the advanced reservations and the booking windows and knowing the people that are actually in the market that are ready to come back to work, or it's helpful. And our HR team's been amazing in terms of keeping in touch with those furloughed people. And we're trying to give them insight of saying, okay, and again, like anything, information is so helpful in communication. So we're trying to make sure that they know, hey, here's how things are happening in the industry. Here's what we're seeing in your market. Here's when maybe you can expect that we're going to be able to bring you back.
Are you still buying? Are you guys still looking at purchasing companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, there's, strategically, and I think there's going to be some opportunities here, of course, as we go through this. But yeah, I mean, like anything in any marketplace, there's always buyers and sellers, no matter what the marketplace is. Whether if you go back into some of the other downturns, whether it was 2008, 2009, there's always going to be a marketplace for buyers and sellers. I think Vacasa has always been strategic and opportunistic at the same way. And I think, yeah, if there's certain opportunities that make sense. I mean, we've got a new CEO, Matt Roberts. He's great. He has the same kind of strategic kind of vision, and I think we'll look at how things go. But I think there'll be opportunities on both sides for buyers and for sellers.
Tobias, is Oyo still in acquisition mode?
Look, I mean, we're absolutely agree. I think all of us agree that we are fundamentally believing in this industry, right? Of course, it's a tough time right now for us, as it is for everybody in hospitality, and probably beyond that. But I mean, the fundamentals of our industry are still intact. And so we would continue looking into opportunities always, because that's the strategic decision, right? As Bob said, right? I mean, you don't want your strategy to actually, it's not a good strategy if it stops on a short-term impact, right? However, let's also be clear, a lot of our energy right now goes into managing the crisis, and so we probably don't have a structured approach that we had before, but we will continue to look at opportunistic opportunities here.
One subject that's come up recently are mergers. Do you think we'll see more like true mergers in this space than we've seen in the past? We haven't really seen a lot of that activity. JB, what do you think?
I think so. You saw a big merger, with Zillow and Trulia, right? They were both big leaders. They figured out together they'd be stronger than they would on their own. Their management teams got along well. I think you're going to see some of that happen. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're going to see massive chunks of funding flowing into any travel business right now. So mergers might be the way for people to get larger and more efficient. But I think we got a ways before that shakes itself out. I don't see a lot of that happening until probably later in the year. Right now, everyone's in buckle down, get through it mode, not necessarily figure out a way to expand mode.
Bob, were you at Resort Quest when 9/11 happened?
No, I was not. No.
Shortly after. I was looking back some of that information. I mean, right after 9/11, Resort Quest, their stock price tanked. I mean, like worse than TripAdvisor tanked. And it was a really big thing, at that time before moving into that sale to Gaylord. There were a lot of discussions about things like travel insurance and just operationally trying to make things more efficient, because in coming together as Resort Quest, they thought that the diversification, for instance, if you have a hurricane in Gulf Shores, since you guys have a lot of destinations, you wouldn't have that problem in Colorado. In this case, you've got a global drop-off in, well, like Cliff said, an artificial constraint on demand, and like JB just brought up, an artificial supply, constraint as well. Are you more exposed being in multiple destinations at this point than a local provider would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, I mean, we're more exposed, but at the same time, I think we're also, that exposure is more leveled off as well, so that we're going to be, positioned when certain markets come back. I mean, you think about this. So in the ski markets, for example, they were coming to the end of the season anyway. So, and if you look at a lot of our markets, I mean, we're a seasonal business in a lot of different markets. So I think when the business comes back seasonally, we're positioned correctly because we're in so many markets. I think, just like Tobias was saying, I mean, as we see things kind of loosen up internationally, we're positioned internationally to take advantage of that. Certainly right now, of course, with the fact that we're in 19 countries, as you mentioned, it's a artificially constrained demand situation right now. But when demand does come back, I think because we're in so many of the popular destinations, we'll also be able to take advantage of that. So I think it's a double-edged sword, Amy. I mean, right now it's you're feeling one side of the sword, but as soon as things start to loosen up, we'll feel the other side, which is going to be because we've got so much of a variety of destinations.
Tobias, what in your career has prepared you for this moment? Have you had things, I mean, in your experience in this industry, which has been long, what have you seen that you've drawn parallels to? What in your personal life is helping you be a better leader at this point?
Oh, so I'll be honest. I mean, I have not seen anything like that in my career within the vacation rental business or the time before. I actually, I co-founded a company in 2000, and we went right into the .com bubble. It was a new economy, typical new economy company. I was in my late 20s. And I actually went through a significant business crisis, and we managed to get out of it. But it was by far not as complex and as earth-shaking, so to say, as what we see here right now. So no, I think no one was prepared, and everybody I ask tells me that he has not actually seen anything like that. However, I think the second part of your question is the interesting one. What does it with us personally? And it is making us a different leader, I'm sure, because we are becoming much more, we're becoming more probably aware of how fragile the business is and all parts of the lives are. So I think, I mean, I'm learning a lot every day. And I'm probably hopefully I'm getting a better leader and business person.
JP, same question to you. I used to work for you, so you have some pretty decent leadership skills anyway. How has this shaped you? How is this shaping you?
It's so I started my career in the airlines back in 1992, and within 6 months, we did 2 rounds of layoffs, 2 additional pay cuts, and basically filed for bankruptcy. That was my first experience. In the .com crash, we had to let go of 20-30% of our people. The 2008-2009 slowdown wasn't so hard on the business I was in. And I think all of those things prepare you for a couple things. One is to try to be fair and compassionate and rational with everybody, because these are really hard times. If you try to keep a level head and just know that you're doing the best you can for people, it allows you to sleep a little bit better at night. And then focusing on coming out of a crisis and focusing on how to put yourself in the best position so that your employees, your customers, your guests also can emerge with you. I think really takes over, and you learn that after you've been through these crises, they all do end, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, having gone through a few of these, that really gets imprinted on your soul. It's not just something that you try to believe in. You really do know it's going to happen.
Bob, you've been through a few storms yourself. I mean, what has shaped you before, and what is shaping you now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, you go back to 9/11 when I had my own business, and certainly that was an impactful time. And then you go through the Great Recession, that certainly impacted me as a leader as well as the business. I mean, from my perspective, as a leader, I've always probably relied more heavily on accountability and growth as some of the driving things that I think my team will say I really enjoy. And I think what I'm learning here really is that you really have to be innovative and have empathy. And I think those are some key terms that I'm telling myself every day is like just coming out of some of those other crises, don't miss an opportunity to be innovative. And I think that's one thing I will get again with Matt Roberts coming in. He brings a whole new perspective to our industry and innovation, and I think that's really exciting. And then just the empathy. I mean, whether it's for your owners, for your guests, your employees, I'm just learning that that's something that drives me every day, is to take a step back before I maybe react and go, okay, the old saying, put yourself in their shoes and see how it goes. So I will say honestly, I mean, we had this webinar with our owners, and I was just really impressed with how, I mean, I expected we get a lot of hard questions, which we did, but I was also impressed with how many owners are just kind of also rising up. And to something that Tobias said earlier, I think we're going to see just a big demand for professionally managed, and people are I think our churn is going to go down because people are going to be so happy with how all of us as vacation rental managers are stepping up and taking care of them. So it's kind of my perspective.
Last rapid question. You guys, are you in it for the long term? Oh yeah, Turnkey, Vacasa, are you going to stick through this whole situation and be here on the other side? Bob, Vacasa's going to be here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to it for sure. Yeah.
V, Turnkey, you're going anywhere? Are you
Yeah,
merging with Bob? Is there going to be a Turnkey Vacasa merger?
well, look, I mean, Turnkey would, we've always built this business around a very lightweight model, right? We still only have around 440 or so employees nationwide. So, I wouldn't say we were built for a crisis like this, but we were built to be able to quickly scale up and down with demand and bookings and still provide a high level of service. And financially we're in a pretty good place. So yeah, we're going to be around. Wish this wouldn't have happened to anyone, but I think we're going to come out of this, looking as good as we can.
Tell me the same thing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the old leisure group now, Oyo Vacation Homes, I mean, parts of it dates back 60 years. I mean, the dance center business in Denmark is 60 years old. The Belvilla business here in the Netherlands is 40 years old. We have built this business over the course of 40 to 60 years with a lot of financial and organizational discipline. And that made us successful, and that obviously allowed us to weather a lot of crises and also tectonic changes in the industry in general. And that is this. I mean, this DNA is engraved in all of us here, and we'll continue to actually operate that. And so I'm very. I mean, as JV said, we'll get out of this. This is a crisis that will go over, even if it doesn't look like right now. And then we'll come out stronger. I'm 100% convinced that the product vacation rental and professionally managed vacation rentals will be a winner after all, and we'll come out stronger.
That's a perfect note to leave that on. However, if you are not thinking about staying in this business and want to sell your company, you probably want to go to the next session in 15 minutes, where we're going to talk about how, what acquisition looks like in a post-pandemic world with Ben Edwards. WSJV, Bob, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know this is not the time you wanted to take today, but we're grateful. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Amy. Thanks for this event. It's actually a great event. We've got a ton of employees watching it all day. So thank you for organizing this and giving us something to look forward to out of our normal daily grinds.
Well, it looks like this virtual conference thing is the new normal for me. So I'm going to try to learning my way through it. This is definitely a trial and error process, but it's going pretty well so far, minus the morning power outage. But we'll see what happens. Again, the next session is at 10:45 Central Time. And so we're gonna take a really quick coffee, restroom break, and do that. And we've got a cool session following that with Jim Olin. Kevin Groff, that Bob mentioned from US Bank now, used to be at Wyndham, and J.R. Matthews at Tregoron, who's actually been picking up vacation rental management companies himself. So we'll talk soon. Thank you guys so much.
My best to JR. Okay, so long. Thanks.
Thanks all. Appreciate it. Stay safe.